Hello everybody, good evening and welcome to AEL Uni League Dota. It's week 4 here in Season 2 of 2022 and I am the Wandering Bard. I'm very excited tonight to bring you this series between RMIT Black and AUE Black. So battle black on black. Who will claim their right to using that color in their name? RMIT probably going to be fighting hardest for it. There's like 4 different RMIT teams, and they really need that to distinguish them. But Adelaide Uni Esports, they have been putting on a fearsome display the last couple of times we've tuned into them. So who knows who will come out on top here? And obviously, as we get deeper into the season, this has very important implications for the finals hopes of both these teams. So Dota 2 is heading to its most exciting time of the year. We've got the International coming up very soon, and the patch is relatively stable because of that. So these two teams have now had more than enough time, you would say, to come up with their strats and their counter strats, figure out any little pocket picks they like to do, practice them, and it's really a sort of battle of dedication and training as a team now, as much as it is drafting ingenuity or individual skill. Though we've obviously got plenty of individual skill on show tonight, not only in Psycho and the boys, including Andros, Mighty Andros, one of the most successful players in AEL Uni League, and of course over on RMIT side, players like Wong Sarun and Commando Monkey, who I believe will be doing the captaining tonight. So plenty of action to come. The players are just getting the lobby set up now, so we will be starting live very soon. But while we wait, you can check me out at the Wandering Bard or at a Wandering Bard, sorry, on Twitter. I normally save that to the end, but may as well take the time now to plug that I am working in all sorts of esports, not only Dota 2, but card games, fighting games, anything else. Obviously, with the International coming up, I'm going to be pretty Dota focused, so if you love to talk Dota, if you love to follow esports, check me out there. And of course, make sure to also check out AEL, without whom, obviously, I would not be here talking to you. They are available at /AU Esports League on all good social media sites, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, as well as Twitch, which I assume you're watching me on right now. So if you're not following them on Twitch, the Twitches are twitch.tv/AEL Uni and AEL Uni 2. And, while you're there, you know what, you may as well check out Australian Esports League. That's twitch.tv/AU Esports League. That's the main non-Uni League channel for AEL. There's just so much going on in Australian esports right now. Unfortunately, there's not quite so much going on in the lobby. Well, we can sort of bring that up or switch that over to in-game so I can show you some of the sponsors, because we'll get that out of the way as well right now. Obviously, we always love to thank our sponsors here at AEL Uni League, and mostly what we love to thank is Predator Gaming. They are our PC parts sponsor. They allow you to conquer new worlds in gaming and put power and precision in your hands to elevate your gaming experience in every way with quality and performance that are just synonymous with the Predator name. So thank you, Predator Gaming. Also, of course, thanks to AOC, the best possible viewing experience in gaming. They are our global leader in monitor display technology and the proud monitor partner of Australian Esports League Uni League gameplay. For more than 50 years, AOC has delivered an exceptional viewing experience to millions of loyal customers worldwide, including me. It's great stuff. And today, the company offers a wide selection of stylish monitors for home, office, or gaming use, or all of the above on the same monitor if you're me. And of course, we have Rig, delivering what it takes to win. They develop headsets, delivering superior audio for competitive gamers and streamers at all levels, and they are, of course, the AEL Uni League headset sponsor. Join the Rig team and enhance your gaming experience today, and luckily, our gaming experience is going to be enhanced by the addition of The Last Player to our lobby very soon. So hopefully the game will begin in just a few seconds. I am absolutely hyped tonight. We've got a best of 2. Obviously, if one team goes 2-0, that's going to be a huge leg up on their opposition in this tightly run Uni League race as we look towards the playoffs. Lots of players showing up tonight. No WDK for the side of AEL Uni League. AUE Black Esports. Just if you say Uni League too much, it kind of gets on your brain a little bit. But there's worse things to have. And having the Adelaide Uni Esports Black roster in the lobby ready to go. They are probably the team to beat tonight, but RMIT Black, I've been told that both teams have something pretty spicy to let rip, so I was trying to foreshadow that a bit earlier. They've had some time to come up with the special sauce for this patch, or perhaps they were just watching one of Australia's most famous Dota exports, Ana, playing with T1 in the TI qualifiers last few days, unleashing Marcy position 1, Undying position 1, I think it was earlier today. So plenty of let's say, unconventional hero picks seem to be viable in the current patch, at least if you are a 2-time TI winner, and you have Thompson in the mid lane playing Morphling to bail you out of a bad situation. So, you know, we can see that if you are daring enough, there is a lot of options to try and keep the Dota entertaining. But in the meantime, we will potentially see a more conventional set of picks tonight, because obviously the stakes are high. That being said, conventional Dota has been blown a bit open in the last couple of patches. Heroes like Pudge, you usually don't see too much. Heroes changing positions, seemingly, you know, just wherever people like to play them. There's all sorts of new ground being uncovered. You know, even heroes that are nerfed quite heavily from patch to patch seem to not really drift out of the meta quite like they used to. Part of that's down to the TI patch, which typically goes with a little bit of a softer touch than you know, usual balanced patches do. But you know, it's nice to see that instead of complaining about a static meta or things not being changed, things still being broken, most players seem to be embracing the TI patch, and it sort of bodes really well for the next couple of months of competitive Dota. So unfortunately, we are still waiting on another player. So I'll tell you what. We might go to a very short break. Don't go anywhere. I've told the new player is just logging into Dota now, so hopefully only another minute or two. But rather than have me continue to ramble, I'll save my breath, and you can go get a drink for about 2 minutes and then come back, and we will be back straight to the draft as soon as it's ready. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. I told you, everyone. I promised we would be back when the draft was ready, and sure enough, it was only a short wait more, and here we are again with the RMIT Black Adelaide Uni Esports Black Derby. It's a showdown between these two teams. I won't overuse that, but it is a very exciting and important match here in AEL Uni League Dota 2. It's so good to finally be in, and perhaps out of deference to Anna's Carry Undying from earlier in the day, we have opened with an Undying ban from Adelaide Uni Esports. It really is a great patch to be a zombie, except for this game where he is uncontestable in the draft, being removed out, obviously, for that laning phase dominance, early teamfight dominance with the Tombstone. Even the Flesh Golem is quite formidable these days. Ice Frog having nerfed the hero a little bit in the last patch, changes to the Ags and such, but it doesn't really change what's so powerful about the hero, so we've removed it completely. RMIT Black banning out Juggernaut, not a hero that every team is sort of placing as the top tier carry right now, but certainly one of those old reliables in the carry position. And then follow-up bans, Adelaide Uni Esports removing Dawnbringer, or Dawnbreaker rather, and Tiny being removed by RMIT Black. So Adelaide Uni Esports banning out some of these beefy, laning phase strength heroes tend to dominate the off lane or are very strong in a supporting role in an aggressive lane. Mid-game team fighting power also a thing that Dawnbreaker and Undying have in common, so maybe just trying to insulate themselves from a draft out of RMIT Black that's going to overrun them completely. We've seen a lot of teams in the AEL Uni League really prefer that aggressive tempo-based style of play, and Adelaide Uni Esports, they're further going to bolster their defensive credentials with a Dazzle first pick. So making sure they lock down that save hero. Obviously some very powerful laning out of the little pink troll as well, thanks to Poison Touch. I don't know if you've seen much success from Dazzle lately in AUE Sports League, but that's not really necessarily the hero's fault. Of course, Dazzle just one part of a larger machine, and it really depends what kind of heroes you have to throw down the Shallow Grave on and how they're going to be utilizing it. I feel like most successful Dazzle lineups of late have benefited from having a very aggressive draft themselves and having really good diving heroes like Night Stalker, who can charge in and really make sure you get the most aggressive use out of the few seconds you're unkillable to punish and kill opposing heroes. That way they can't finish you off when the grave ends. RMIT Black, though, they secure a couple of very powerful laners of their own, Hoodwink and Viper being picked up. We've seen some absolute heroics on the Hoodwink previously from the sort of core Hoodwink players, but hero is a very strong support right now as well. Just generally got a good buff in the patch to a hero that's already thereabouts, and so has become quite a favorite here in the Uni League. And Viper, again, can't get rid of this hero. It's that little green pest that's always there, always ruining your laning phase, and yeah, Viper's going to be probably, you'd imagine, the offlane of this game. You know, the year or so we had of POS 5, Viper terrorizing the laning phase is kind of come and gone thanks to mana changes on the hero's abilities. But Tusk, a laning support who still packs a lot of a punch, can't leave the pun on the table there. But Dazzle Tusk, nice support duo, potentially. I don't know if I can really get excited about a core Tusk. I'm not really a Tusk fan, but I respect the hero for what it does, and other players are obviously quite masterful at using it. It is a hero that, as we've seen in the last couple of times it's been picked up, can struggle a little bit if you don't have a good snowballing team fighting advantage in the early game, right? You want to put this hero to use, and its best use is ganking and fighting. So with these two supports, really looking forward to some aggressive kill-making, play-making cores out of AUE's back half of the draft, and they're going to remove some of the more passive carries who might, try and dodge fights in the early game and then come back to punish you. PA and Faceless Void both removed. RMIT Black, they continue the carry banning trend, and they remove Slark, who, makes some sense, fits the bill as a carry that can fight a bit more early on, but not a hero that a lot of players are really excited about this patch either. So both these teams going with some very, very idiosyncratic stuff. I'm not sure whether they've played each other in houses or something. Maybe they have a bit more insight into each other's plans than you or I do, but we shall see. Puck also banned out. That one seems smart. Dream Coil, really powerful ability if you're looking to force a lot of kills and engagements early on. And it'll be interesting if that is the direction that Adelaide Uni Esports are taking their draft, what RMIT do in response. They've kind of got a more flexible opening too here. It doesn't seem to dictate much about how their draft is going to play. So they could choose to, match and pick for pick, play very strong team fight into this sort of early brawling draft and challenge Adelaide Uni Esports to actually, take and hold an advantage in terms of map control. Or they could choose to play more sort of runaway, macro level Dota, pick some mobile cores that are hard to gank and split the map to try and out-farm their opponents as they run around and look for kills. We've seen teams take both approaches. It really depends what you and your players are more comfortable with. And that's what Commando Monkey is figuring out right now. Adelaide Uni Esports, they've banned the Vengeful Spirit. Sometime core hero, sometimes saving support. Both would seem to be pretty good uses of it right now. It's been removed. And of course, Clinks getting taken out of the picture by RMIT Black. So again, just trying to target these more aggressive core heroes who benefit from very early timings and who can move around the map and participate themselves in kills, right? So RMIT Black, I'm gonna claim some valor here and say that they have a similar view on the draft to what I do right now, but all of that speculative banning, we're gonna see the fruits of that as we enter the second and longest pick phase. Adelaide Uni Esports waiting for RMIT Black's move. And this is a very important third pick. They're using some of their time on it. Actually been using a lot of time already. So RMIT Black, you can tell they're taking this series very seriously. But what will they come up with in the end? Still taking their time. really sweating on this third overall pick. Perhaps picking their carry or perhaps committing to a support. They commit to a second support and it's Lion, so two. I mean, Hoodwink and Lion aren't the weakest supports in terms of being individually targeted. Both have decent disables. Hoodwink quite speedy and long-ranged. But these are still two fairly squishy supports. That Tusk player must be licking their lips. I'm not sure if it's Fat Controller, not sure if it's Andros, but whoever's lined up on the Tusk, and there it is, the Night Stalker Dazzle Tusk combination. This is the hero that was most at the forefront of my mind, and it's nice enough to have a hero like a Lion or a Hoodwink if you're able to stay back out of the fighting, but Night Stalker moves so fast and flies in over the trees. It's great for zoning back the enemy team away from heroes like your Sniper, who will benefit both from the Dazzle and from the front line being bolstered by the Dazzle, potentially a very strong solo Sniper carry game. And it is a good patch for it. Razor being picked up here, so maybe just with the idea of sending that to whichever lane the Sniper's in, being able to run at the Sniper, especially in the side lanes, certainly one way to deal with him earlier on, but I think we may even have seen Sniper Razor mid lane, and I don't know necessarily that the Razor can manhandle the Sniper as much as he likes. Headshot and Shrapnel are quite powerful early game skills as low health as the Sniper tends to be, and you know that Adelaide Uni Esports are going to be looking after their boy. This isn't a pub. The whole team will be keeping an eye on how well Sniper's laning phase is progressing. It's important to get that hero off to a great start so you can sort of stay ahead of the curve in terms of damage. When you've got these glass cannon heroes, you need to make sure that you're always putting out enough damage to deter enemy aggression on you and remain this potent force in the game. And so that's going to be a focal point for both teams early on. Meanwhile, as we go to our last couple of bans, RMIT Black, they removed the Phantom Lancer, so they were expecting actually a surprisingly greedy turn at the end of this draft to complement a mid lane Sniper. We'll see if their second ban also follows those lines, but it is true that their current draft has a lot of single target and lacks that much AoE. Adelaide Uni Esports, they removed the Void Spirit, so they don't want Sniper potentially being punished any harder than he already would be. And yeah, RMIT Black, they're convinced that this is a mid Sniper and that Adelaide Uni want another hard carry to bolster this lineup. They expect this to be perhaps a more active Sniper with off just one item, maybe something like an early Shadow Blade, Mask of Madness, some sort of Sniper build like that can roam to the side lanes and ensure that whichever hero, Night Stalker and Tusk are chasing, gets gunned down while a hard carry farms. And will Adelaide Uni? No, they potentially will not give them that. They pick up Winter Wyvern, so is this mid-Wyvern or perhaps mid-Dazzle with a safe lane Sniper, off-lane Night Stalker? There's a little bit of a spanner thrown into the works of this draft, and RMIT Black, who are sitting here banning out conventional POS 1, greedy, hard-farming carries, you have to imagine they were thrown for a loop a bit by this. Maybe it was a possibility on their radar still, but that's not the heroes they were banning out. Maybe they're pumping their fists saying, well, we banned out the heroes they really want and we forced them to take a Wyvern, but we'll see. Commando Monkey, one pick to potentially redress this draft. Have they even figured out which hero is the core here out of Tusk, Dazzle, and Winter Wyvern? What will they see as their counter? If it is a core Wyvern, how do you stop that? It's, potentially a time for a ranged carry, or is it, some sort of more defensive pick of their own? Maybe they think they can out-farm this draft. They really lack teamfight right now is a major concern for me. Going up against both Night Stalker and Tusk and the Winter Wyvern, there's a ton of control here. You can't just let them cast all their spells freely, especially with a Dazzle. Bristleback, a decent hero for zoning back heroes like Dazzle himself, right? Obviously very tanky, runs in the middle of the teamfight, but their overall damage output, they've sort of got three of the same hero in Bristleback, Razor, and Viper, and even with Lion chipping him with a Finger of Death, I don't know how their damage output is going to be in these mid-game fights if one or more of these core heroes doesn't really pop off and build a very high damage, aggressive variant of their build. Adelaide Uni Esports, they might not have the highest damage overall, but when you're bringing a Sniper to the table, not to mention the fact that Bristleback does play a little bit into the percentage damage brought by Winter Wyvern, I don't think that they're going to have as much trouble. So Fat Control are going to be on, or Control, going to be on the Sniper. Andros is playing the Winter Wyvern, which is an exciting sign. We've got over on the, we've got Psycho picking up the Tusk, Captain Psycho, wearing that crown to let you know. This is the team drafter and leader. We've got G on the Night Stalker and Vez1 on the Dazzler, and opposite them for RMIT Black, ZJPG on the Hoodwink. Wow. Walter on the Viper, Long Saroon on the Lion, and Bowl on the Razor, and Commando Monkey on the Bristleback. So those are your teams for Game 1 tonight. It's exciting stuff. We're getting ready to get into the game, so Thank you for your patience. We've now waded through... That was a pretty serene kind of pace for the draft. Both teams taking their time to pick these heroes up, and you know, hopefully that kind of diligence is rewarded when we get into the actual game and it doesn't all just turn into a pumpkin on them. All right. Moving out on the map now. As well, our first challenge, I guess, or our first test is going to be seeing where these heroes actually go to lane. And we've got Andros queuing up a bottle. It does look very much like Mid-Winter Wyvern. So I haven't seen this in a couple of patches. It was popularized by 9. Was he, I think he was playing for Tundra at the time. Yeah, made that hero look very good. Did get the ultimate nerfed from how it was at the time. But ultimately, the things that made the hero a potent mid are still available, right? It's always kind of had this subtle potency as a core, mostly thanks to Splinter Blast, a really, really powerful farming ability and spammable nuke that helps the hero in lane, helps the hero later on in fights. You obviously also have this handy percentage damage-based spell, and the Aghanim Scepter, ever since that was added, sort of a clear sign from Icerog that he understands the carry potential that Wyvern has. Getting first blood at it would put it off to a great start, and you can see here Wong Saroon, even with a decent Impale, has no chance of slipping away from all those slows. So the level 1 invade, it's become quite a common tactic here, and it ends up being successful for the Dire. So great start to this game for Psycho and the boys here from AUE Black. They're getting their mid laner the first blood. It's going to actually send the bottle out from base before the start of the game, thanks to that frugal initial item set. And despite having to lane up against what looks like a mid-Viper from Walter, so this sort of dragon-on-dragon action, you have to imagine this is all going swimmingly, all going according to plan. And Andros has the potential so far to really pop off and show us what a mid-Wyvern can do on the current patch. Meanwhile, in the offlane, we've got G and Psycho here from AUE Black, going up against the Razor, so Razor not actually matching the Sniper for the lane. You've got a different core to do that, and the Bristleback is going to do a fine job, and Razor hopefully going to be well suited to this lane. You've got two heroes that want to run at you, or roll at you perhaps, and obviously Static Link really good for discouraging that kind of aggression. You've got Wong Saroon, who'll mostly be hoping to hide out, because I think the Lion is the soft target in this lane if the two strength heroes can get to grips with it. Meanwhile, in top lane, we've got ZJPG on the Hoodwink and Vez1 on the Dazzle. Battle of the key smash support names. Going to be Dazzle, obviously, who has a leg up in the head-to-head there, despite the early Blightstone out of Hoodwink. But in the actual lane, Fat Control on this Sniper may regret being left alone as, okay, Vez1 able to get a nice little deny off there on the Dazzle. It's going to be mostly about the economy game for these two, and while I don't think Vez will be confident slipping away to stack camps anytime soon, if Fat Control is able to stay in the lane and keep up on CS against the oppressive presence of a Bristleback, that'll be a dub for the Dire as far as I'm concerned. But this mid lane is where the exciting action is. You can see already, none of these heroes particularly passive in the early levels. Walter getting stuck in with the poison attack onto Andros, trying to assert their presence before Andros is able to get too many points into the nukes. But of course, Splinter Blast is already available. Both of these heroes pretty decent potential to sort of field a gank as well, but unfortunately for the Dire at least, they don't have the best supports for it, at least until Tusk is able to work his way loose from this bottom lane. Seems like early on, though, it's more important to secure the farm of the Night Stalker and maybe secure some farm for himself as Psycho is able to de-ward the camp there. Trying to hold the creeps back out of the tower, even, it looks like, with the Ice Shard. So, trying all sorts of inventive things right now in lieu of being able to actually brawl in this lane as Wong Saroon continues to dodge aggression as the line, but now getting aggressive in their own right. They go straight onto G on the Night Stalker. Razor, though, the Static Link ends, 34 damage stolen, has the Q as well, gets the slowdown on a Night Stalker, but there's just too many trees. He's able to weave in and out of vision. Wong Saroon, only level 1, had no follow-up disable. But that is still some great pressure on the lane, and that's something that's strong about Lion's laning phase. You may not be the best at all-ins, but Impale is a very good and mana-efficient spell. Fat Control, fast fingers there, has the Quelling Blade on this Sniper, and immediately cuts down the tree from the Acorn shot, so ZJPG unable to effect the full spell combo from Hoodwink there. Might have spelled trouble for the Sniper, and If you can, that's the kind of dexterity that you'll want to keep up throughout the game. Can really limit the impact of this Hoodwink hero if you're willing to hold on to some sort of tree-cutting item or spell. And even though Fat Control remains somewhat low on health, this is a lane where the Sniper is quite comfortable trading farm evenly with the Bristleback for now. We'll see whether that changes as both heroes level, but certainly at least the danger of getting nuked down isn't going to scale up because Bristleback tends to not add much burst damage to the lane, so that'll be one less thing for the Sniper to worry about. And maybe then we're going to see more neutral creep stacking action from VS1, already getting a pull off here to try and redeem the creep aggro, which is a little Radiant favored right now. But yeah, mostly passive right now, early goings, and were it not for that pre-creep clash in the bottom lane that took the life of Wong Saroon, we wouldn't have a first blood yet in this game. Very passive Dota early. Might be a scrap over the runes, though. But it just seems like both teams really understand sort of where they are each strong, where they are each weak, and no one's kind of risking an engagement that might go poorly for them. Although, both supports from the bottom lane now fading over. The Tusk has worked his way free from bottom lane as anticipated, but Psycho's Ice Shards aren't the best, unfortunately. Tried to trap Walter, but ended up sort of making it difficult for his own mid lane to get in on the action, and realizes that the Lion is there. In fact, did Wong Saroon teleport to the tower? They ended up on the other side of Psycho, so not actually sandwiching the Tusk as they might have been able to. And now it looks like they can actually somehow turn this back into a kill on the Lion anyway, as Wyvern's able to work her way all the way around from the mid lane, and Psycho buys a bit of time with the Snowball, does end up going down to all of the DOT, so both supports end up dying for that. Little bit of a mess, but yeah, Lion did use the TP scroll there, teleported from the neutral camp over to the mid lane, fearing that Viper was going to get dived, and that maybe ended up being a bit premature. It made the kill on the Tusk harder to get, and ultimately, more importantly, it's going to mean that Lion experiences the classic walk of shame back from base, but Fat Control going to be walking somewhere. Walks all the way into hell after some aggression from Commando Monkey and Zayd JPG sort of overcomes the healing potential of this Dazzle. There's one maybe going to regret not putting a point into Shallow Grave, and Andros actually kills Walter in the mid lane. There it is. I didn't expect it to come into action so immediately. I thought that Psycho might return to the bottom lane, but Psycho actually teleports back to mid, and they effect an immediate kill onto the Viper. Where meanwhile the Lion, you can see there, not able to return in time thanks to that investment of the teleport cooldown earlier on. So finally we get a bit of action in this game, even more action now. The floodgates have opened. Vez1 in the top lane now has the Grave. All says Fat Control, you got the Grave for yourself, huh? No Grave for your carry player. I see how it is. And the Grave will actually save Dazzle's life, so I guess you could say learn from the previous experience, but the experience and gold of the Sniper will be hurting as a result of that early death. Don't want too many of those, and it does seem like the Radiant top lane is really starting to throw its weight around and restrict the ability of Sniper and Dazzle to play here. Will we see some sort of change? Can we get a rotation? G is still quite low level on this Night Stalker, even with the Tusk who's been a lot running around. Now Andros has to be careful not to give a solo kill back the other way to Walter. Teleports to the fountain, but dies in the fountain. Had a feeling that might happen before I can even click onto the fountain and check the HP. That last tick of the dots lands. Very confident play from Walter, and that ends a killing spree from the Winter Wyvern. So that's going to be a significant bit of a boost to the Viper, who of course gave away one of those kills himself, and will be happy to recollect on that gold. So the Radiant have suddenly wrested control of the laning phase back from the Dire after that brief upswing following the Tusk rotation, and God, unfortunately, doesn't really have the mana right now on this Night Stalker to change that. Even as it becomes nighttime, he wants to get aggressive, but we'll need a Soul Ring or some other form of mana regen that's just not present right now. And maybe just understands with the static link available, you can see they're draining 56 damage pretty effortlessly. It just might not be the lane where Night Stalker can get those laning phase kills. It might be the might have to either be a farming first nighttime or an opportunity for G to try and find a teleport rotation to something like top lane or mid lane. Mid lane does seem to be the next side of action. Both supports hanging around behind the enemy lines, just waiting for one of these two dragon mids to overstep their bounds, but so far not much happening. And now Wong Saroon's second Radiant support drifting towards mid, maybe trying to help out with the mid lane itself, maybe just trying to get some wards up. Ends up backing off. I'm not sure if any of these heroes still have even seen each other, but it's pretty obvious what's going on. All the side lanes feeling pretty empty, and Commando Monkey calls for help perhaps, or calls for a gank on Fat Control on the Sniper. There was actually some pretty significant damage being done to the Bristle, but now finally some sort of move in mid lane. Psycho might regret it though. Gets Viper striked by Walter, forces out the Winter's Curse. That is a DD on Viper, so Psycho, the curse alone may not save him. Actually, it was just fast enough. Any more DOTs might have been the death of him, but now he might have to watch his mid laner die instead. Psycho doesn't have a snowball for 5 seconds if he wanted the save, but Andros judged that one well, and so it will cripple both heroes, but neither goes down from the Dire. That was all their idea though, to initiate, so pretty strongly rebuffed by the Radiant. Radiant top lane is kind of suffering a little, but again, no one dying there, so this remains a close, intense laning phase. Finally, we start to see these core heroes pick up their first item, which might signal a bit more of an aggressive shift in gameplay. Ves1 actually catches ZJPEG in the jungle, but it will be the neutral creeps claiming the kill, so maybe not as lucrative as it could have been. There's 3 die heroes in top, though, so Commando Monkey not reacting immediately to the loss of the support, maybe feeling safe on the Bristle, gonna come to regret that. You'd think the Ice Shards traps him in, and level 1 Ice Shards duration is all it takes to bring it down the offlaner, but immediately the counter kill on the other side of the map. Bol has that Razor ultimate, and has the support in the lane, sees that both supports are top, and executes God on the Nightstalk. So both teams maybe showing a little bit too much greed on their offlaners in dangerous situations, and both of them pay for it with their lives. So naturally, we look across to the safe laners. They are topping the CS for their respective teams, but the Razor a little bit ahead of the Sniper. So potentially the chance for the Radiant to get aggressive. You'd think it'd be a big part of their game plan, considering how their cores kind of scale in this game. Ves1, certainly you're going to feel the aggression right now. ZJPEG with a great toss of the Bushwhack, going to bind the Dazzle up, and even the Grave only buys him a few more seconds. He's able to get back to its side of his friendly tower and salute it before he dies, but nothing really significant. That's a very aggressive Winter's Curse. It's going to buy time for the Snowball to roll in, and Psycho able to get on top of Walter, and that shows you the potential of the Winter's Curse, especially early game where it's not needed as a team fight spell. You can just use it as a way to set up ganks. The instantaneous, lengthy stun, it's hard to really play around it. What are you going to do? Never go near Wyvern, but can lead to death at any time if your team are not ready with the TPs to counter gank. They're going to at least try and counter gank sort of after the fact. Multiple Radiant heroes lingering in mid. Andros has some pretty decent dire vision on the right-hand side of the lane. Both teams very heavily warded up around there, actually. And we see down bottom lane, Razor actually dies. So this time it's G who gets the hook up from a support, finds the enemy laner without a support of their own, and makes a kill happen. Psycho really getting involved on the tusk. So I mentioned that you have to make this hero pay off early game. So far, that's happening. They're justifying that pick. Let's see if the Radiant can justify their aggressive course. They've caught the Dazzle again. Ves1 was trying to play in the trees, but maybe he was playing deep enough because he does have the immediate TP counter gank. The Wyvern comes in here. Andros, never want to leave a man behind, picks off Walter, and instead it'll be the Radiant scattering. Luckily, the Bristleback, the passive, showing its worth there, just kind of swallowing up the damage from Sniper's ultimate. And Andros, though, he's not done chasing after these heroes. Now onto the Hoodwink. ZJPEG low on mana, forced out of the fight. Commando Monkey gonna eat the Splinter Blast, doing a ton of damage there, even despite the Bristleback. And actually, the neutral creeps might be the death of Dazzle, but it's actually a bait. Unfortunately, those are neutral creeps. No one's controlling them. They're unreliable allies, and they drop targeting on the Dazzle. Meanwhile, no one is willing to let go. That Hoodwink, low on health and mana, ends up feeding away an extra kill. So suddenly 10-5 to the Dire. What an excellent rotation to the top lane from Andros. And combined with the good rotations out of this Psycho Tusk, who is level 7, by the way, max tag team, which is pretty fun. You can see that this strategy so far is paying off for them, and they're the team who I expected to maybe be on the back foot at this point in the game, right? You're up against a Bristleback, a Viper, and a Razor. These 3 heroes have a ton of potential to dive in lanes, but so far they just can't get their supports in on the action in the right lanes. It's the opponents who are setting the pace, and once again, Tusk makes the rotation happen, but ZJPEG is there this time and gets the counter gank off. That's so much needed. If Bol had gone down there on the Razor, who knows what would have happened. Actually, even tries for the Hoodwink ultimate to execute God. Oh, actually, G dodges the Hoodwink ult, but that forces him to stay in the lane long enough for Bol to rush in. Bol gets the kill with the Razor Q and an auto attack, but the auto attack required him to tank a tower shot, which is actually his death as well. So uncertain how good or bad that trade is. I'm sure at least Nightstalker can say, oh, well, that was calculated. I knew that he would have had to die to get me. And Razor, that's your most farmed hero on the Radiant going down. Obviously, all the cores are farming pretty well in this game. There's only been very limited aggression, and none of them have really left the lane. All the fighting has been where the support's moving around, dictating which lanes see fighting happen in. But, you know, still losing your position 1. The opposing sniper is 75-11 currently. Fat Control did, in fact, build that Mask of Madness, now rushing into a Dragon Lance to make sure that you can, you know, at least your bullets can keep up with your aggressive Night Stalker Tusk duo. It's looking scary. The Radiant may want to group up soon, and they are pinging a tower to group up an attack. But it's actually going to be the mid lane where we see one of the cores rotating. Commando Monkey teleports in, but only in time to get the last hit on his own Viper. Thanks to the Winter's Curse, Walter was going down anyway, so it's definitely not Commando Monkey causing the death of his mid laner, and he is able to pick up a counter kill onto Psycho's Tusk. It does feel morally good, but, you know, the more economic good is the kill onto G in the bottom lane again. As soon as one team rotates supports to one lane, the other team finds a different lane and kills the core there. None of these cores willing to give up their aggressive farming positions in the lane out to respect that. And so we're just seeing them die time and again to the disables brought by these supports. And now, just as the JPEG pinged before, the Radiant are going to take a tier 1 tower. That's going to be theirs to claim. First Tower Blood. First Mortar? First rubble of the game. Tier 1 goes down. And we'll see whether that allows them to up their pace at all. Looks like the trade for that will be a kill on Walter in the mid lane from Psycho. I was expecting action at the top lane, and sure enough, it is immediately followed up by action there, but Commando Monkey is very tanky with the Vanguard now on top of level 3 Bristleback, and just Fat Control and Vez1 by themselves aren't enough, or perhaps they anticipated a counter rotation now that the Radiant T1 is down in bottom. Bowl is free to rotate up on the Razor, and he runs in and starts sucking away all the damage from this sniper. It doesn't reduce the headshot damage though, so Fat Control just sits there, stands and delivers, doesn't reduce the assassinate damage either, which is going to bring the Razor low. Commando Monkey already chased down and killed the tower, and some supports are enough to do for him. And now they have drawn 4 Dire Heroes to the top lane. Maybe it was a bait, maybe it was a bluff, but if it was, their bluff has been called. Wong Sarun's going to die now. Ser JPEG late to the fight, as was his brother Support, going to at least join his team in solidarity in the grave, but, you know, as good as solidarity is, I think you'd be rather farming during this time, and it looks like instead we're just going to see the Dire. I was about to say the Dire move in to take their own offlane tier 1, but instead we see Sniper immediately teleport to the bottom lane. And fair enough from Fat Control, identifies that as a sniper, really don't be farming the dangerous parts of the map. Not a very mobile hero, not very resilient to ganks, and despite the Dire having some great vision up in the top lane that they've just set up for him, they understand this is where the action is going to be. A ton of Dire heroes just teleported up here, so rather than get stuck in this absolute traffic jam of heroes for the next couple of minutes, we'll just pull our sniper out and leave the rest of the team here to kind of anchor the Radiant to the top lane while Fat Control continues to advance his item build. But it will be the Dire top tier 1 that's under threat. A prize for the Radiant for sure. Psycho, though, great little positioning by the Dire heroes. They don't all go back to the tower, and Vez1 and Psycho are able to collapse onto that fragile support. Now the Winter's Curse. It's found the Bristleback. He may be facing away from the Dire, but he's facing his own team, and he drops pretty low from that alone. However, God was standing inside... Actually, sorry, that's not the Viper Mark. That's actually a friendly neutral item, I believe. But he's still very low, and Vez1, the whole team's in retreat right now. Lion throws out Impale, but it doesn't hit any of the important heroes, and Psycho returns to the lane. They actually managed to pick off the Razor. They're all very low, so you can't imagine the Dire will get out of this without casualties, but the Radiant, they're the ones behind enemy lines. The Dire are just darting in and out of the fog here, picking heroes off. They do get a couple, but they do lose G. It's a double kill for Walter, and now Andros actually stepped out of the trees at the wrong time. There's fewer Dire heroes remaining to provide a distraction, and he only buys himself a little bit of time with his own save, but it's enough time for Fat Control to turn back up here. His teleport cooldown is back off, and he realizes that the farm of these heroes in the top lane is worth a lot more than the farm of the creeps in the bottom. In fact, he was already able to take the bottom tier 1, and now that all looks like it was a Dire calculated masterstroke, whether it was or not. AUE Black are able to get a wicked sick spree up on their level 12, 133 CS sniper, who is already rapidly progressing towards a Shadow Blade, or on top of that Dragonlance Mask of Madness treads that he already had. He is having an absolute belter of a game here, and the rest of his team, however many of them just died for that, they don't mind too much, I'm sure. G's a little bit behind on this Night Stalker, but he's cleverly gone this economic build of Bracer. He's just rushing the Blink Dagger into BKB to be able to fulfill his role on the team, and okay, maybe he got a little bit keen, maybe he's actually not so happy about those items, but he's going to get bailed out of here by a very clever snowball back towards the creeps from Psycho, and they pursue him up the hill. They've all stacked up for the Winter's Curse. It's going to be the death of Walter, and actually, okay, wait, did that Hoodwink ultimate actually miss? G, going to go down regardless. No, he actually manages to get out of range of the Bristleback Spines thanks to some great crowd control from his team. That Hoodwink ultimate, it looks, was just off sight by a pixel Pistol or two. They try to combine it with the Impale, and now that may even end up costing them more heroes. Wong Saroon trapped by a beautiful Ice Shards out of Psycho. He rolls downhill. This Night Stalker is back in the fight, absolutely insatiable in his bloodlust is G. Psycho will be the one to pay for it, though. Unfortunately, he doesn't have the flying vision of his, flying movement of his compatriot. But God will actually finally end up securing the kill on the Hoodwink, which was the thing that started all of this. But because they just can't get anything going right for them right now on the Radiant, it's the sniper. It's Fat Control who picks up all of these hero kills again. Now up to, what is that? 8, 1, and 2 on the sniper. That's a formidable stat line. It's going to all but complete the Shadow Blade, especially when you factor in the T1 tower they will almost certainly take here. And I think this is starting to become more of a draft issue that's been revealed here. The Radiant, I would have thought that if anything, this was their time period to be strong, but the laning phase was very inconclusive. They seemed to sort of linger in it for too long, perhaps as a result of these heroes, none of them really feeling in a fit state to rotate. They all wanted to get to that one item timing they all share, but unfortunately by the time they made to it, because of the more aggressive rotations out of the Dire, now they find themselves actually behind, and Psycho is making them feel vulnerable. Blink Dagger up on the Tusk, easy kill on Wong Saroon. This alliance had almost no impact. These fights have just been too chaotic for him to line up his spells. Another problem potentially with their draft, these two supports very much looking like easy kills for the diving heroes of the Dire, and Psycho, everyone's looking like an easy kill for him right now. Blink, Punch, Dead Walter, that's a mid lane Viper. We're not just talking about executing 5 positions anymore, and ZJPEG will just sort of become a casualty, collateral damage, unless the trees can hide their squirrely daughter. No, Psycho, Blink Dagger available, cuts her down. Back to the fight though, Bol has the BKB ready on the Razor, but not much else besides, including teammates, and Fat Control finally gets that grave that he wasn't able to find in the laning phase, and does die. The Finger of Death doesn't end up working out. If we're going to give Wong Saroon some credit, we'll say that it made sure that the sniper was at like 1 hit point when the grave expired, and that is enough to end the godlike spree. It is Wong Saroon who gets credit for the kill, and I believe a Finger of Death buff as well with how fast that death came afterwards. So something finally back the way of the Radiant, but as we stop to catch our breath, it's already 14-31. Things are looking dire. Okay, the Dire now setting up shop in the enemy triangle, so moving into a more aggressive phase of their game. Certainly with the Shadow Blade complete, you have to think you've done enough for the sniper now. He doesn't need any more help. And they're free to hunt whatever kills they can find. Catch as catch can kind of Dota here. Psycho catches the poor old Hoodwink again. We're up to 7 deaths on the Hoodwink, 7 deaths on the Lion, both of them with only 1 kill, and only 10 assists between them. Obviously, there's only been 14 kills in the game, but I think that as a whole shows that something's gone wrong with your draft. These should be assist machine kind of heroes, and the fact that they have less assists between them than your team has kills by a considerable margin just shows how hard it has been for this team to actually find any success when they've gathered together. You know, the kills mostly came opportunistically in the laning phase, and it's the Dire who sort of advanced the tempo of the game and started grouping up, and since then, you can see the complete lack of teamfight skills on the side of the Dire really hamstringing them. But at the same time, they don't have a late game carrier of their own, really. None of these heroes scale enough with farm to really justify wandering off into a side lane and ignoring the Dire while they take this tier 2 tower. You're not going to outfarm this sniper, so they have to fight. And, you know, whether or not they're spending this time ruining their draft theory, they're not able to find much of a start to this team fight. Lion goes in first this time and gets a good stun off, but immediately the Winter's Curse cuts off all aggression on the front line, leads to the death to 2 supports, and Commando Monkey, who was trying to dive the back line, is completely stranded there, dies to the damage of the remaining 3 Dire heroes. G will go down on this Night Stalker, obviously continues to be a bit of a role player this game, has had to accept being a bit underfarmed, and so when you're going to stick yourself out on the front lines like that, you're going to die. Speaking of, Psycho is able to kill the Razor. I'm not sure that's worth it, though. You just gave away a mega kill streak, blinking into the enemy tier 4s. Yeah, Commando Monkey, as said, his brain is so big right now. The drafter and leader in this game for AUE Black, his brain may be growing too large, too much of a burden, and he decides to die like a hero, bringing down the enemy 1 position, establishes dominance, T-poses under the enemy throne, but you know, the dominance is best shown by the map position that the Dire had held up until that point, and actually with the deaths of those 2 heroes, they're forced to take a step back. So, Radiant, they do still have decent vision. This ward's expiring, kind of a relic of how the game looked 6 minutes ago, that they would be having a ward on the other side of the map, whereas right now it sort of seems like they'd be happy just to hold their own neutrals for a few minutes. you have to wonder how things can improve for them. They have the BKB up on this Razor, and their other two heroes should be building, or at least one of them. Commando Monkey is finishing an Ags. Does kill that Dire tier 1 top that kind of started this whole cascade of failures for the Radiant when it was so ably defended 5 minutes or so back. But Andros, Witchblade ready, most of an Ag Scepter bought for him as well, so very soon we will have that Flying Vision Wyvern. You can see that earlier teamfight gameplay where these long-range heroes are just drifting in and out of trees to cast their spells or fire off attacks, and it's impossible to actually commit to getting over to them, really exploiting not only the lack of AoEs, but the lack of mobility on the side of this Radiant team. They have to walk around, most of them, and Viper in particular isn't even very quick about it. So difficult to reach this Wyvern and Sniper in the backline when you're behind, particularly, and you can see the Razor can't even move. Between the Arctic Burn and the headshot, he's just paralyzed in place. The game doesn't say he is stunned, but you and I know otherwise, and that's another core hero just dying. The safe lane carry goes down again. Psycho, a little bit upset in the all chat. I'm not sure why that would be. God picked up a pile of bounty runes. Maybe he was saving those some sort of art installation. Earns the ire of his captain. But when teams are worried about these sorts of trivial things, you can tell their game is going pretty well. And Fat Control with the finished Silver Edge hadn't even really got around to discussing this item. The Shadow Blade by itself was bad enough for a team that are already struggling to find and kill this Sniper. He's only got 2 deaths to his name, but now with that Silver Edge, the Bristleback and the Viper are massively unnoticed. They were previously perhaps somewhat tanky. It has mostly been the Razor who's been going down to the dire aggression, but now all of these heroes are going to feel like they're made out of crepe paper when they get hit by this powerful break. Roshan goes down. Sniper picks up that Aegis. Could potentially have donated it to the Night Stalker, who, you know, still hasn't quite finished the BKB yet. In fact, switched the game going so, not so badly for the Night Stalker, but he's kind of been left behind by the pace at which the rest of his team are moving forward. So has to forego the Blink Dagger for now, just rushing to finish that BKB. But as we said, mobility not high for the Radiant. So you imagine a BKB Hunter in the Night boosted Night Stalker will have more than enough ability to get on top of the heroes he needs to. It just doesn't seem like you need that instant blink in with silence already active to control these team fights. Wong Saroon and ZJPEG are already struggling mightily to actually get their spells in at the right time on the right targets. Not because of their own play, but just because the targets are so far off. And, you know, the Lion does have a Blink Dagger now of his own. Hoodwink rocking that Eye of Vizier for the extended cast range. Definitely worth a minus max mana, but I don't know that by itself is good enough. BKB purchased immediately by the Night Stalker with the gold from that tower, and now you can see things really heating up. Tusk has the Dagger of Ristal. Very powerful item on a hero with a built-in crit, and demonstrates that for us by executing the Hoodwink. In fact, I don't think he even needed to use the item there. Now the follow-up, though, they're not satisfied with just the one bling up the high ground. It can show you how far behind the Radiant are. That didn't just turn into a trade of kills, but it's actually a bit of a rout of a teamfight. God gets locked down, actually receives both the Shallow Grave and the Cold Embrace. Bit of a non-bow there, but they kill Commando Monkey, and the Force Staff gets him down from the high ground. Psycho treating that wall like it's not even there, unable to fly over it like the rest of his team, but does benefit from that Blink Dagger cooldown. It seems like it's almost not got a cooldown at this point with how aggressive they are. Buybacks from the Radiant, but there's still multiple heroes dead. Walter actually died back already, it looks like, so this game is all but over, even more so than it normally looks like at this point with one team's Tier 3 being besieged. It's just the Radiant heroes can't even approach the Dire. Wong Saroon blinking in to try and prove me wrong. He was able to approach, but blink and you'll miss it kind of stuff there as he dies immediately. Actually, ZJPEG finally makes up for that very, very near miss earlier on and nails poor Night Stalker with that sharpshooter. So that Night Stalker, the whipping boy of the Dire lineup, but with him absorbing all of the deaths/sins for the team, the rest of them are able to just kind of coast to victory here. Psycho in particular, looking more like he's the offlaner right here. 2,300 gold stacked up on this hero after Blink and Force. Did he buy a Yules there? Who knows? Fat Control, who knows what the Sniper is working towards here. Still has 2 minutes 20 left on the Aegis, so not at all inclined to leave this base alone. Just standing outside the Tier 3 and snipering it down. And This is one way to really ensure that you press this advantage. We've seen some teams kind of get to this spot in the game, but their draft is so focused on killing heroes and establishing map dominance, they don't have a way to siege towers, and that's not the case right now. Fat Control outranging this tier 3 means that unless someone's able to skip creeps, and again, the Radiant really lack the kind of mobile heroes to do that, your buildings are just forfeit. There's no way to remove this siege unless you can actually fight. Walter, not interested in defending the racks, though. He's calling out the Tusk, challenging Psycho to fight him under the tier 4s. Clearly a neutral battleground for this duel. Totally fair and above board stuff. Tusk considering accepting the challenge even, though. And, actually, no, hanging back. I think this is all just buying time. Unfortunately, Psycho has become bored of killing the Radiant. He has 7 kills and 27 assists. I'm almost certain that's more than the entire Radiant team behind it is. So, combined, rather. So that tells you something about how this game's gone and how important the Tusk has been for it, right? 27 kill involvements out of 45 kills. Nothing to scoff at. There is going to be a final engagement. Bit of a dive onto the backline, but it doesn't come to anything because the Bristleback just gets pinned down by the Winter's Curse and becomes a roadblock to his team on the ramp. All of the Radiant heroes die, except for the Hoodwink, who is hiding somewhere at the back. And don't worry, Psycho will finally come tier 4s. In order to finish off the Hoodwink. The original challenge long having been, you know, kind of made moot by the death of the Viper. And this game is now made moot as well, as the Viper concedes things. The Radiant well and truly cooked by AUE Black there. And just goes to show the power of Dazzle, Tusk, Nightstalker. I'd love to see the combined win rate stats on this hero trio. Very, very powerful stuff, but there was still more that I think could have been done both in and out of game by the RMIT Black squad. Perhaps they needed to have a way to break their laning phase earlier. Perhaps one of these 3 core heroes needed to focus on a build that would let them rotate earlier on, or maybe you needed to change one of those up. Perhaps you needed a support between these 2 heroes that was more able to either win the lane they were in or rotate to win a different lane. It all just kind of felt like they were a little bit static early on, and that let Adelaide Uni Esports take control of the initiative and never see it again. Great, great stuff from Psycho on the Tusk in particular, and Andros on this mid-whiff, and I was warned they need... it is Fat Control. Okay. Well, I thought it might be, but, you know, you're the one who typed your name wrong, buddy, so we'll see. Fat Control on the Sniper, definitely controlling that game. And Andros showing off the spice on the midwife. And we'll have more spice, no doubt. AUE Black are a very exciting team, and I'm excited to see what they have for us in Game 2's draft, or whether RMIT Black can actually steal the spotlight with a dynamic and winning draft of their own. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with another lobby in just a couple of minutes. And we are back. Thank you so much for waiting there. Had a little bit of technical difficulty getting the players into the game, but we are now ready to return and bring you Game 2 of this best of 2 series between RMIT Black and AUE Black. I am the Wandering Bard, and this is AEL Uni League Dota 2 Season 2 2022. If that's too many twos for you, then, well, we better just focus on the draft. RMIT Black, they are the ones on the back foot. Having lost Game 1 in decisive fashion, they have taken a first step to fixing what they saw as the issues with their Game 1, which is to ban Sniper. Fat Control dominated Game 1, definitely took control of it from very early on, actually, as this hero managed to come out of the laning phase intact, made some really astute decisions in terms of moving around the map, and the rest of AUE played great around that hero, really kind of committing their whole team to creating opportunities that Fat Control could swoop in and clean up on. So demonstrated a lot of proficiency with that hero, and RMIT Black, they're just going to take the two most successful heroes from the AUE Black lineup of Game 1 and ban them out immediately at the outset of the draft. So they say, you have to do something different. Tusk is out, Sniper is out, but Dazzle is untouched, and Night Stalker is also available right now. Those two heroes were also a big part of their success in Game 1. Of course, they might not be so successful without the Tusk leading the way and the Sniper backing them up, but definitely still a consideration. And perhaps RMIT, are they concerned enough about having Game 2 be a repeat of Game 1 that they would deny pick the Night Stalker themselves? They do not. But they grabbed the Wind Ranger hero they have not seen in quite some time. Perhaps they're going to use that as a bit of a stopgap. They definitely lacked a hero like this in Game 1, right? Like, the Viper could arguably have been that hero, but wasn't able, it seemed like, to get out of mid lane fast enough to help the side lanes. Whereas, assuming that this might be a core Wind Ranger, that would at least give you an option to move around quickly on the map, have a really quick fire, long-lasting stun that you can use to either turn fights or set them up, and does still scale into the late game. Now, granted, could also be a support. Wind Ranger does kind of fit the mold of a Hoodwink or a Lion type hero that it seems like RMIT Black prefer, but having two of those heroes in Game 1 was a little too many, so between Zajebheg and Wong Saru, it looks like one of them will be on Ogre Magi duties. It's like being sent to timeout as a support player for a lot of us. This hero can be somewhat one-dimensional, but you have to admit the laning phase is very powerful and is a lot less susceptible to getting just completely bullied out of the game by diving heroes. And Adelaide Uni Esports, they snap up the Faceless Void. This hero kind of got almost overlooked a bit in the first draft. I think managed to get through the whole first phase without being glanced over. Has been very powerful in a lot of scenes, a lot of pro games. So Faceless Void being acquired by AUE, that's going to be their hard carry for the game, one would imagine. Although, they've showed a willingness to mix things up. They did play a mid-Wyvern in Game 1. Maybe this is going to be an off-lane Void or a mid-Void. Who can possibly say, right? For now, though, we will assume it's a safe laner. RMIT Black, they ban out the OD. Definitely not a bad idea to try and ban a bit of a faster-paced core for the mid lane. If you're going to have a safe lane Faceless Void, you would ideally pair that with a mid laner and off laner who can get aggressive earlier on, who can cover the Faceless Void sort of slow starting timing. The strength of Void in this patch seems to be that the way the laning phase works now makes it a lot easier for Void to stay in lane and hit his timings on his first farming item, which obviously then influence how quickly you can get, your second farming item or your survivability item, and then eventually once you hit that 3 to 4 item timing, that's when Faceless Void goes from being a hero that sometimes shows up to fights and gets a solo kill to a hero that can dominate the flow of the game more fully. But if you take those heroes like Viper and Invoker and OD out of the game, not only are you denying some really potent combinations with the Chronosphere, but you're denying that synergy where your core hero timings cover each other, at least somewhat. RMIT Black, they pick up the axe. Haven't seen many teams finding success with this hero lately, but perhaps RMIT Black, they'll be the ones to show us how to do it. Axe power, baby. It would be great to see this hero come back into prominence, but AUE, they pose some interesting questions to a team playing around these sorts of aggressive melee heroes like Ogre and Axe. They throw down the Jakiro and the Necrophos, so tons of space control, tons of sustain, slow sieging ability, and if you want to try and make any sort of decisive initiation into this blob of heroes and stuns, you have to worry about the Chronosphere, and you have to worry about the Reaper's Scythe. Even the Dazzle being able to save a hero could buy enough time to really turn things around, and it's a scary proposition, right? It puts a lot of execution requirements on your team, especially if you are the ones who fall behind out of the laning phase again, and like last game, you find yourselves needing to find a way to play yourselves back into the lead. Obviously, it's easier depending on what heroes you have. Picking up a Drow Ranger seems like a nice answer to the Void. It gives you a silence, but more importantly, gives you a ranged hero that can really punish the Void for being stuck in his Chronosphere. And AUE, they go... I didn't really rattle off their bans before, but they have removed PA, Monkey, and now Dawnbreaker and Quap. So some interesting bans being picked up by them. I'm not sure if we've seen their mid laner yet. You'd think it's probably the Necrophos, but could easily be an offlane Necro. Could be mid Necro and offlane Jakiro. So unclear which position remains for them. But RMIT Black, they're banning out the Skywrath, so arguably still targeting Void synergies. Whereas AUE just seem to be removing heroes that can dive well, heroes with a lot of burst damage, heroes that buy BKB and have those options. Those sorts of mobile cores, the lack of mobility on RMIT Black, especially the lack of blinks, basically, the lack of burst mobility, was a big factor that AUE were able to exploit in how they built and how they played in Game 1. And so far, there really isn't that much still available of that sort for RMIT Black in Game 2. You know, Axe usually buys a Blink Dagger, Wind Ranger often does as well, but you have to be able to get to those items, you need to be able to fit them into your build, instead of it delaying another more important item. And if they were planning on picking up a Blink hero last, Puck and Quap and Monkey all being removed by AUE, at least thin out the range of choices they have. Obviously, it's not every hero. It looks like my camera's frozen. My apologies. It's obviously not every hero they could grab that has a blink, but there's still plenty that they could get left. And the last ban coming out now, they have to try and pick, what position are you even banning around here? They decide to ban the mid. That is like the high impact role they could use to fill here, and they remove Void Spirit. So another great hero for diving the backline and moving around in the fights around your own Chronosphere. Maybe if there's a hero that avoids the Chrono, being able to pick them off and punish that target is very intelligent. And it is worth noting that AOE, they don't have the most burst mobility themselves either right now. In particular, they don't have a Blink Initiator. Assuming Faceless Void is more of a counter initiator, and Chaos Knight is a nice way to do that. They don't need a team fight spell initiator of sorts, but they did need a way to sort of start fights and pick off a hero so that Void can then jump in and, once the fight is sort of congregated, and throw down a Chrono. And, okay, I was promised some spice earlier today. Psycho has selected a Faceless Void, so is this a 4-position Faceless Void and an off-lane Necrophos? That's what it appears to be. Safe lane Chaos Knight, mid-lane Jakiro, 4-pos Faceless Void. I must say, the 4-pos Faceless Void I've seen once or twice, but I don't know about it right now. AUE, this might be a harder sell than the mid-Wyvern. Mild spice in comparison. This is the off the end of the full 5 chili scale end of your Hot Wings episode level spicy draft. RMIT Black, they bounce back. They respond with the Shadow Fiend pickup. Bowl playing that one. I wonder if that means it's a safe lane Shadow Fiend. More likely, I would guess that this is a lane swap for the players instead, but we'll let them get to the game and show us that. In the meantime, I'd like to quickly run through and thank our sponsors. Of course, we've got Predator Gaming, the gaming PC parts sponsor of AEL Uni League. They let you conquer new worlds with Predator Gaming today, putting power and precision in your hands to elevate your gaming experience. Thanks to Predator for all of the performance enhancing parts that they provide. And of course, AOC, our next sponsor. They are the monitor display partner of the Uni League and a global leader in monitor technology for more than 50 years. They deliver an exceptional viewing experience for home, office, or gaming use to the millions of loyal AOC customers worldwide, including, of course, us at the Uni League. And finally, our headset sponsor, Rig. They are what it takes to win. They develop headsets that deliver superior audio for competitive gamers and streamers at all levels of those professions. So join the Rig team to enhance your gaming experience. And this time, at least, the Radiant, it seems, will avoid the noble fate of being first-blooded at the runes. They've run out in formation to the opponent high ground, in fact trying to sort of turn the tables on their opponents, but perhaps because they executed that play themselves in Game 1, the Dire are proving themselves not as vulnerable. Having a little bit of trouble there, sorry, with the old casting script. There we go. Okay. So here we are, Psycho testing the ward position of the mid lane tower. Gets hit by it, but there is no ward there. That was the enemy Ogre who provided vision of you. So Psycho kind of or actually the wall was on the other side of the lane. That was dropped down first. My apologies to Psycho. Merely missed with the sentry instead of misplacing it. And, I'm excited to follow Psycho again. Massive performance in Game 1 on the 4-pos Tusk, but this is a whole different degree of difficulty if you're a soft support player. Psycho running in with the Void. How will this go in the lane? Are we going to be seeing Bash skilled early on? Are we going to attempt to trade it up with the Ogre Magi and the Drow? Are you going to be mostly focused on stacking neutrals, as you sometimes hide a support like this that doesn't provide a lot of laning utility by just having them go away into the jungle and set up the economy for your team, but they don't have a brilliant stack-taking hero either, so not certain what it's going to be like. Void, not really a ganker, not really that able to farm neutrals efficiently. There's a reason this isn't a support hero, and it's not just that Dota players are big fans of traditional role assignments. There's just, not a lot to recommend it, but the big selling point, obviously, is being able to use Chronosphere and Time Dilation more for what the team needs than to set the pace for your own carry hero. And the carrying, of course, will be done by Fat Control. The R is not silent, I suppose invisible, on this Chaos Knight, which is a big ask for Chaos Knight, but we've seen it work, obviously. The hero has been buffed slowly over time to be more of a real carry player, and if he's able to get a good laning phase start in particular, that is not a part of the draft that I find in doubt, nor is this mid Jakiro from Andros. Had more than enough experience seeing that one thrive and exploit games with the powerful sieging potential, space control, and damage over time spells it brings. We'll have to see how this lineup fares once the various BKBs come out, though, because both the Jakiro and the Necrophos struggle a little bit against BKB, and even Fat Control, until he finds that Reality Rift pierces Spell Immune talent at level 20, might struggle to get to grips with a hero like Shadowfiend, who's a ranged BKB buyer. The only BKB piercing stun they have to interrupt the ultimate at that point is Reaper's Scythe, which you don't really want to use in that capacity. So some real challenges posed by this draft for the Dire, but you get the sense it's very intentional, and I'm sure they have an idea on how to exploit the upsides that this unusual lopsided hero lineup brings them. I'm just watching the top lane for now. Lots of action here as Vezwan again getting into a tangle with the opposing support. This time it's Wong Saroon. In the early game, both heroes dropping fairly low, but both heroes have ways to heal themselves and their lane partner up. Meanwhile, the bottom lane, very passive, as you'd expect, although the Void, having left the lane, does kind of hang G out to dry again. I know that last game they were able to get by with G being underfarmed on the Night Stalker, and he did play a very good Night Stalker game within that context, right? Building the items his team needed, making the plays his team needed him to, even if it led to a lot of deaths personally on his hero. VS1, I look away from top lane for just a second, and the first blood is drawn. They're able to get a kill on Commando Monkey's Axe. No Reality Rift available, but just the combination of a stun, presumably, into Poison Touch, does the job, and Wong Saroon, no points in Shackle Shot yet, cannot break up the aggression from the Dire, so great first blood for them. Second game in a row that first blood is taken by AUE Black. And, yeah, I was just sort of speculating on the idea that maybe they can't afford to neglect G's hero as much this time. I think that Necrophos suffers even more than Night Stalker if he's left under farm. So even if you have another great game on Fat Control on Andros, you do want to make sure that you're not surrendering the offlane completely. And Psycho, after wandering over to mid for a little bit, does end up committing to the original lane. I don't really know if Void's going to help you gank mid anyway, even if it is a hero as vulnerable as Shadowfiend without boots. Just lingering on his high ground for now in case of that happening. Fat Control getting into a fight with Commando Monkey despite some low HP, but the lifesteal from that Chaos Strike really paying off, and Commando Monkey vanishes. The combined damage out of these heroes, the level 2 Poison Touch, 28 damage per second. And, yeah, there's no minus armor at all to speak of. That's just Axe going down. 3 base armor on this hero. 780 health. You'd think he'd be a bit more tanky, but not the case. Just vaporized by the onslaught of these heroes. And Wong Saroon, again, just sort of out of the way on this hero, not able to interrupt that aggression. And this is not the start you hope for this Axe hero. It's not really a great Axe patch, so I was hoping to see a lot of momentum out of the laning phase. G, another offlaner in trouble, gets some items delivered, but mostly to his backpack, and at least you could argue you were somewhat close to getting the kill there on Walter's Drow, but in the end it was all an elaborate bait. So both offlaners, again, having a rough time of it. These teams choosing to prioritize their other cause. ZJPEG did lose a courier there, That's the Ogre, not able to obtain an early Soul Ring. That would have been a massive boon. And you can see actually already queuing up the hand of Midas. Actually quite like this greed on the Ogre support. It looks like you've got a fairly easy lane, so why not? Why not go for Soul Ring into Midas, I say? Might need to transition it into a core to make up for this Axe if Commando Monkey continues to have such a hard time. Only 9 CS on this hero, but it must be said, all the Radiant cores suffering a little bit. It was 3 Die Heroes at the top of the CS charts there for a bit, and the Shadow Fiend has only just eclipsed the Necrophos after his death there. Now, Commando Monkey in trouble again on top lane. They're getting absolutely shredded by those Dazzle spells, but now finally Wong Saroon has found level 3 on this Wind Ranger, and you can see there the impact a good Shackle Shot can have. Laser Eye targets that one up, and it hits the 2 heroes. That's going to bail out the Axe. A Salve is going to get Commando Monkey back up to full health with the help of that Ring of Health, but no boots on this Axe means that if you're playing this far forward in the lane, you basically need to have the Wind Ranger there with the Shackle at all times, because you know there's not a lot of a cooldown on this Poison Touch. Again, the Poison Touch aggression comes out, and again, Wong Saroon finds the positioning for the Shackle Shot, but this time, Fat Control has also found a new skill to put points in. It's Reality Rift, so you close the gap again, and Commando Monkey experiences the 3rd death of the laning phase. It's only 6 minutes in. This Axe is struggling mightily. Level 3 is at the lowest in the game. It's tied for the lowest in the game with his own supports and the Faceless Void. Not a great start for this Axe, and every time he dies, the laning phase just gets harder. Commando Monkey knew something drastic had to be done. Teleports to mid lane to bail out Bol on the Shadow Fiend. This could prove to be an inspired choice. Psycho attempting a gank on the Void, but as we just discussed, Void not the best ganker. That said though, Andros definitely a very powerful hero at this stage in the game. 3-0 and 3 skill build means that he easily has enough damage to melt down the enemy supports, and they do kill the Ogre, but the Void dies, the Shadow Fiend survives, and the Axe survives. So crucial XP and gold being found by Commando Monkey, and he's just going to go straight into the jungle, it looks like. Has the ring already, rushing the Vanguard. This is why we didn't see the boots. It wasn't just out of a sheer sense of poorness. It looks like this Axe was 100% committed to abandoning the offlane from the very outset. This Dazzle, I mean, if the Dazzle is such a threat to your laning phase, one wonders why that wasn't the ban, but I guess you can only ban so many heroes, and yeah, the impact of Ves1 as a support Dazzle player, I think we've seen this not just in this series, but all through this season of Uni League, has been massive. Commando Monkey decides to safe to farm under the tower at least, and this Axe will hopefully be able to recover, but it does show that your team is going to have a bit of a recovery phase, and if you're recovering on all 3 core heroes, that's when the game gets very dangerous. They need to get someone off to a good start. It looks like it might be Walter. G actually turns onto ZJPEG and executes him, hitting level 6 with that Reaper's Scythe, and so in an instant, instead of chasing down and killing the enemy offlane hero and progressing Walter's game, trying to make that your strong core, that's a kill for the Necro, who's going to regenerate back up, and we're just in time to see Bol die in mid lane. Again, Psycho ganking on the Faceless Void, by which I mean he dashed in, hit the time dilation, and got off a quick mace hit as well, but really, Andros 3-0 and 4, maximum magic damage, and yeah, I'm honestly a little bit surprised that it's the Shadow Fiend who's set up in mid lane. I guess you can't really put it anywhere else, but the Shadow Fiend really cannot stand up to this level of magic damage pressure. Wong Saroon on the support Wind Ranger, he can't either. Trying to defend this very low HP mid tier 1, and in fact, was that a Shadow Fiend mid teleport cancel? Yeah, Bol almost just autopiloted the TP there, has to cancel as he realizes the mid lane tier 1 is going to die, and he would only be dying along with it. And instead, the mid lane tower dies, Shadow Fiend has to walk out of base. They find another kill on this offlane Axe. Commando Monkey 1 and 4. Just really having an absolutely miserable time, cannot get to this Vanguard yet. And in the meantime, the enemy is clearing up. If you're going to get out-leveled by the enemy 4-pos Faceless Void, that is a grim sight. Axe will at least get this creep wave to himself. Or will he? They collapse on him at top lane. Immediately fires off the call, dragging Fat Control deeper into the tower before he can be stunned. But maybe not deep enough. He is going to get Fat Control very low, but the Axe dies just too quickly, and with the Axe not able to get to level 6, there's no way to counter this Dazzle. Ves1 able to throw out the Shallow Grave without fear and bail out the Chaos Knight, who teleports away. No one had the teleports available, it looks like, on the Radiant, or maybe they just didn't have faith that Commando Monkey would live long enough, and so there's no actual trade in kills, despite how well Commando Monkey arguably did in extending that play. Wong Saroon is seeing some nice shackle shots here, but again, these fights are just too one-sided. Individual shackle shots are not going to make a difference, and somehow, even more so than in Game 1 with that Nightstalker Tusk draft, the AUE Black team are absolutely playing the Radiant out of their shoes and socks right now. The tempo is so high And this is what happens when you lose all 3 lanes, or at the very least, the lanes that you go even in don't have cores who are able to fight. You have this Shadow Fiend and this Drow Ranger, neither of whom are going to be able to really come to these engagements without a couple of items. And as long as AUE Black continue to draft these lineups where their core heroes are so aggressive, right? You've got this core Jakiro, core Necrophos, core Chaos Knight. These are heroes that are 100% able to get on top of and kill these Agi carries when they don't have their BKBs. I mean, Bol firing off the little dance taunt there because he's able to walk into the river and deny a haste rune, but fat lot of good that does you when you then immediately are killed by the 3 dire heroes you wanted in the middle of. These Radiant core heroes, they just can't operate independently or as confidently without items and levels as the dire supports can, and so all AUE Black need do, as Wong Saroon burns to death in the fires of the Macropyre there, all that AUE Black need to do every game, it seems like, is just run at the enemy heroes after a decent laning phase, congregate, force down towers, perhaps target the hero who would most be able to, be that one strong hero in these early game fights, like the Axe, and make sure that they're a non-factor, and then they have the run of the map. As you can see, Commando Monkey even makes a rotation here, but he has no boots, he has no ultimate, he's barely a support here in terms of contribution, and Gion, the Necrophos, is able to just walk away, and in fact, Walter on the Drow has to be very careful. If there was mana on this Necrophos, that might have just been a Reaper's side situation. And while that 3-hero fail gank rotation is happening at bottom as Wong Saroon sort of joins them just in time to watch the Necrophos walk away, the mid tier 2 is being pressured, the top tier 2 is being pressured. It's a 6,000 net worth gold lead at 11 minutes for a team that had a Faceless Void support in the off lane. This is pretty grim. There's one attempting to establish vision control in the Radiant jungle, gets found and tapped on the butt by Wong Saroon. Just lets him know, hey buddy, careful where you travel there. But ultimately, that's all that the Radiant can do right now. They can put the Dire on notice, they can throw out a stun or 2, but they lack the damage to really kill anything right now. Commando Monkey, getting slowed down by the Poison Touch, may not have the firepower to kill a Dazzle, but the silence out of the Drow will actually secure this kill. The first one in quite a while. It was an unstoppable streak for the Dazzle. If you needed an indication of how this game is going, 6 times killing spree on your 5-position Dazzle at 11 minutes 50, something else. But that is, again, every little bit of gold towards this Axe is huge. He continues to neglect boots running around. Is Axe actually barefoot in game? It kind of looks like it. Barefoot Axe. I think he's got like ankle irons on. So okay, maybe Axe has boots, maybe not. Maybe he's cosplaying. He's going straight for the Blink Dagger. Fat Control finds Commando Monkey, or does Commando Monkey... I was going to say maybe Commando Monkey has found Fat Control, but regardless of who initiated contact there, Fat Control is the one who benefits from it. Commando Monkey just ends up feeding away yet another death. The mid lane heroes for the die didn't even really need to rotate over to help out. It is, after all, a level 10 Chaos Knight with Armlet and Treads against an Axe with a Vanguard and nothing, who's 2 and 6, level 7.5. This is a brutal exchange between heroes that at the start of the laning phase were even, and in a matchup that is arguably somewhat Axe-favored, Bol and the Shadow Fiend just standing in the trees, pump-faking ultimate, standing right next to the Faceless Void. I'm not sure who's playing who here. Bol is just, that's what you're reduced to. That's your mid laner here, sitting here with just Treads and Mom. Not really, I can understand the build, but it's a very risky, dangerous build to be going when the problem your team has been having is collapsing in team fights and not having a front line. That's not a build that benefits you when you are essentially exposed on your team's front line as the Shadow Fiend. But Bol kind of banking on, avoiding the Chronosphere, that's step 1. And in fact, this Chronosphere a little bit premature from Psycho, just too excited to let that rip. The Shadow Fiend's going to cover the retreating support heroes with that Requiem of Souls. But Walter, even on this Drow, might go down. So far, the dots haven't claimed anyone's life, but this time dilation plus the Urn probably had it locked in, but Fat Control wants that kill for himself, fires off the Reality Rift to get it, and now Bol kind of moving back forward, feeling like some hero needs to defend this tier 2, ends up going down to the Necrophos. Psycho picking up another 2 kills on the backline, diving in deep. This, I assume it's a max time dilation and Urn of Shadows. I will have to check the Void's hero damage after this. It'll be interesting to see what those actually add up to. I'm not really convinced, but right now it looks like Psycho and the team could pick basically whatever they want. It's the Andros and Fat Control show right now. The tier 2 mid tower is surrendered. Immediately they move to seize full control of the Radiant jungle. Best one will take that outpost. Looks like RMIT Black, they understand this. They move heroes to the bottom lane. They'll tier 2. They're going to try and contest this space. Commando Monkey goes forward, soaks a few spells. Still only halfway to that Blink Dagger. Halfway to Blink without boots. The enemy Faceless Void support has completed a vessel. It's so sad to watch. I love Axe. Big Axe fan here, but this is maybe not his patch. This is definitely not his game. Commando Monkey in massive trouble, as is his whole team right now. Faceless Void off farming the jungle, something which we would expect to see happening if it was, you know, a carry Faceless Void. In fact, he doesn't actually have the vessel. It's the Necrophos that has the vessel, so I don't know if they've realized they're doubling up here on their own items. Maybe Commando just getting a little too excited. Arguably a strat they haven't really practiced or maybe aren't used to. Not one you see every day, that's for sure. But it is working out. If we jump over to the net worth charts, the Dire Hero is obviously dominating that one. Even Faceless Void kind of keeping pace with the Shadow Fiend and the Drow. Again, you could kind of just cover up those top 3 slots and you could almost convince a casual observer that this is a Faceless Void having a bit of a rough game, trying to keep pace with sort of more early game focused cores out of the opponents. But then you realize it's 15 minutes in and the Dire have 3 heroes that are all higher net worth than the mid Shadow Fiend and the carry Drow. This Faceless Void is technically a support, and things start to really sort of pale in terms of outlook. Hero Requiem going off somewhere. It looks like it was just purely defensive from Bold to stay alive in mid lane, and it does, in the end, deter Fat Control, just like the damage it looked like to burst down the Shadow Fiend without the ultimate. So now do that again, but pick up this DD rune and fire off the Phantasm, and then see how it goes. I mean, it's hard. I want to find good points for the Radiant right now, but RMIT Black, they kind of just congregated on this bottom tier 2, really hoping that because they have some decent vision up, the Dire get a little bit too cocky and make an ill-advised play on the tower. But it doesn't look like that's what's going to happen, and it seems like their vision is going to see a double damage Chaos Knight advancing on the tower, and most of the heroes are going to beat a retreat, but not the Drow. Poor old Walter can't create space. You could see him just turn left and turn right there, realizes he's been abandoned. There is no time to even get off a gust. Fat Control executing the enemy carry. Now ZJPEG is caught under the tower in the trees. Nothing will protect you from Fat Control right now. Going absolutely berserk this game. 8,500 net worth. Armlet ready. Echo Saber ready. DD Rune expiring, but who cares about that? BKB will be next on the docket. Psycho running around this Faceless Void has completed a Meteor Hammer. Yep, sure. Whatever. That combos with Chronosphere. I love it. And G in the top lane on this Necrophos going for a Blink Dagger into the Shard, the Death Seeker, just getting as much solo burst potential as they can. So in theory, if the enemy did have, say, a strong Shadow Fiend core, or an Axe was having a good game, you could blink past those heroes, you could maybe isolate the Drow, whichever core doesn't build a BKB, blow them up immediately with the Scythe, but this game, it seems like all we'll be doing is ensuring that once again the Dire can bowl over the high ground in record time. Last game we saw the super aggressive Tusk gameplay blinking onto the high ground repeatedly. They don't have the multiple flying heroes draft this time. Ice Rock hasn't figured out a way to give Jakiro flying movement. You know, seems to be about one per major patch. Gets their Ags changed to grant flying movement, so give him a hot minute. For now though, Andros will just have to breathe his fire and ice from the low ground. Queuing up a Sange and Kaya, so yeah, it's all damage all the time. As far as the AUE Black, actually they've seen a Chronosphere on the bottom lane, trying to pick off Walter on the Drow. I guess this is the benefit of having a support Void. The Chronosphere is not that valuable, it's not that large a consideration for your team, especially when you're this far ahead. More than happy to pick off the enemy one position. Ball pumping that Requiem, uses it on the Necrophos, and finally something goes right. They're not able to disrupt that spell. They're not able to save the Necro either. They are able to punish Bol. Psycho dives in on the Void and gives him an Urn Charge to the face. That'll bring him down. And as they try and follow up on this Void, even though it is just a support, they just have no damage. Commando Monkey and ZJPEG kind of just die passively for standing near Andros. The Poison Touch and the Jakiro spells are by themselves really more than enough to bring down any Radiant hero at the moment. I think they still don't have any BKBs on this team at all. And so, yeah, there's just no hope for them. Fat Control was nowhere near that fight. Happily pushing in the top lane as all this happens. And even in a theoretical 4v5 scenario, only bad signs here for RMIT Black. They really have been routed this game so far. Some argument for them defending the high ground. They have some decent spells for it. Axe obviously looks a lot better on the high ground. He's finally got that Blink Dagger. And those boots. 20-minute boots of speed.
He probably had him before, but, you know, good on him. Maybe a couple of minutes faster. Meanwhile, Andros running around with Witchblade Travels, shipping out what looks like a Kaya. Longsword is actually smoked right now. I think this is just for reconnaissance purposes. Going to get a ward up. Breaks the smoke, so identifies the Dire running around. Trying to make sure you clear all possible Dire vision. Doesn't want to de-ward that sentry, though. You'd rather not give away that you have that on the high. You have your own ward on the higher ground there. But, you know, I think that their powers of deduction on RMIT Black will be enough to tell them where the Dire are right now. They're in the pit. But merely knowing that doesn't really help you when you're this far behind. It's a 16,000 gold net worth of 20 minutes. What it does let you do is potentially set up on G. Commander Monkey sniffed him out with the blink from the axe. Those basic brown boots do not provide the movement speed you would need to catch up to a Necrophos with Boots of Travel. And with the slightly longer cast time on Berserker's Call, longer cast point, axe just can't get into range. Brutal stuff. So the rest of the team, who were kind of lurking around in case they caught something, they all have to let the Necrophos go, which means they have to let the Aegis go without any sort of trade at all. Only even picking up a little bit of farm on top of that. So yeah, really, really hard times. You can see Walter on this drow, Leslie, has had a hard time finding any creep camps. But, yeah, sorry, it's, I think some of these players have had trouble getting the correct names to shop in the game, so, you know, if it is Leslie, I can at least call you by the preferred name. You need some sort of mercy with how this game 2 is going. It's been such a brutal one. The poor old drow hasn't had much of a chance. Again, a hero that looked like a pretty smart call, but this whole draft kind of hinged on this axe having a better start. Not hard to have a better start than the one that was had this game, but again, without that crucial frontline hero, and with you have drow and Shadow Fiend, so again, maybe you're trying to split these heroes up the way that Necro and Wyvern were kind of like split targets in the first game, so you don't all get caught in a Chronosphere. But really, they haven't needed the Chronosphere to get onto these targets. It's just been too easy for the side of AUE Black to take their early advantage and just consistently overrun the RMIT lines, get onto whichever heroes they wanted, and blow them up with burst damage before anything similar can come back at their own faces. And now, once again, 22 minutes, the high ground under massive threat. Andros sieging from the low ground with Jakiro spells. Very, very low commitment sieging. Again, the AoE drafts, they have such a great awareness of the difficulties posed by going high ground for an early game team. That's a nice shackle shot though. Commando Monkey can't quite find the supports with the blink call, not quite having the range, and maybe that will cost them this team fight. The Psycho retaliates. The Aegis is down, but the hero's coming back up, and in the meantime, 3 heroes Chronosphered, 2 heroes Meteor Hammered, and as soon as that Chronosphere ends, all of those heroes are executed. Leslie dies to the Reaper side, the other 2 die to the combined damage of the rest of the Dire heroes. Now their axe is forfeit, and Psycho maybe sending a bit of a commisseratory voice line. Some things were just not meant to be, says the Timekeeper of Klazireem. And sure enough, a Radiant win was never on the cards, it seems like, from very early on in this game. Commander Monkey trying his darndest, but even G on this Necrophos is way too beefy to bring down with the couple of heroes that are left. They're 1 and 2 position, obviously, for RMIT, still recovering from death. They're back up now on the Drow. 5 seconds on the Shadow Fiend. Maybe time for a last stand, but there's no Requiem for a minute. And one thinks that you'll at least be down a lane of racks by that time, if not 2 more. Yeah, Dire showing no signs of slowing down, and why would they? They are happy to challenge you again. Axe blinking forward, he calls the Void, but remember, that's just a support. They might get this kill, or they might not, as he enjoys a grave from Vest 1. No man left behind well and truly, and is then able to shrug off all that damage with the Q. A well-trod combo when that Void is a carry hero, but even as a support here, he's worth the investment, because, of course, the actual carry Fat Control needs no such help from his Dazzle. He's just in behind enemy lines, picking off heroes left and right. First the Axe, then poor old Bowl on the Shadow Fiend. Another hero that's just had no ability to get set up in these team fights. They're just immediately overrun, having to dodge Jakiro spells, having to respect the Necrophos positioning, and then constantly being jumped on by this Chaos Knight and this Faceless Void. How can these poor ranged heroes get anything done at all? And as if to prove my point, Fat Control is wicked sick. Every Radiant hero is dead. The Axe is now respawned, but the GG is called. Commando Monkey has no more appetite for this punishment, being glutton enough already, and so in another another 25-minute game. It is AUE Black who will even more dominantly assert their position as one of the teams to beat in AEL Uni League. Congratulations to them. Commiserations to RMIT Black. I don't think these two games were really a very good showing of their strength as a team, but they just haven't been able to crack the code. These sort of funky drafts out of AUE, they lean so well into what they do as players, which is win their lanes and then turn that into a ton of momentum. They know how to play around their heroes that are doing strong. They know which enemy heroes to target and which timings to exploit in order to win the game, and they are so good at driving that early game advantage to a crushing victory. They never let up on the pressure, and so it was again here in Game 2. Let's just take a look at the net worth graphs, because as always they are very, very illustrative. There's the two safe landers. You can see it's not as though Leslie or Walter on the Drow has had a bad series, but there comes a point when you can't find anywhere safe to farm on this poor Drow Ranger, whereas the Chaos Knight was able to spend the whole game farming, even when his team were pushing high ground in the other lane. That's in part due to Andros keeping up with farm on every level, but it's also due to the way that these two drafts play out, especially when poor old Commando Monkey on this axe has such a stinker. Just from the very start of the laning phase, maybe the Wind Ranger wasn't the choice, maybe they just picked one or two wrong minutes to separate their heroes in that laning phase, maybe you just needed to take Shackle Shot level 1, but whatever the case, AUE Black execute on another excellent game plan, and they prove that at least the Faceless Void support isn't a total liability for their game. Congratulations to Psycho and company. So look forward to seeing more of both these teams in future weeks. Obviously some exciting Dota. Hope you've had a great time with it, and if you have, make sure that you follow up by following the Uni League AEL channels on all social media. That's /AU Esports League on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and Twitch. If you're not following the /AEL Uni and /AEL Uni 2 Twitch channels, make sure you follow those as well. And follow me on Twitter @AWanderingBard to catch this and all the other esports work I do in Dota and other games. For now, though, that's all the entertainment we have for you. I hope you have a wonderful week, and good night, everybody.